My name's Trevor. I'm 33, single, and work in finance. I'm not flashy about it. I don't post about my job or the salary or the long hours it took to get where I am. I've always believed in staying quiet and letting my actions speak. That's probably why my family never quite understood me. To them, if you're not loud, if you're not constantly showing off, you're invisible. And for years, I was just that, invisible. The quiet one, the odd one, the one who didn't come to every barbecue, didn't call every Sunday, didn't beg for a place at the grown-up table during holidays. But I was also the one who paid. Quietly. It started 4 years ago when my nephew, Jordan, got accepted into college. My brother, Clay, Jordan's dad, threw a whole party for it, even made custom t-shirts that said "Proud College Family." My sister, Denise, baked one of those giant cakes shaped like a graduation cap. Everyone gave speeches, toasted Jordan, made a whole show of how proud they were. But no one mentioned how they were actually going to pay for it. That part came after, behind closed doors, when Clay asked me. No, assumed, I'd pitch in a little. I still remember that phone call. "Hey, Trev, you know we're so proud of Jordan, right?" he said, voice syrupy and fake. "Yeah, it's a big deal. Well, college ain't cheap. And you've got, no kids, no real responsibilities. I have a mortgage. Come on, man. You don't even use your vacation days. What are you saving for?" It wasn't even a question. It was an expectation. I could have said no. I should have. But I didn't. Maybe I felt guilty. Maybe I thought if I helped, I'd be seen differently. Maybe I believed that this time, they'd acknowledge me, thank me. So I agreed to cover the tuition. Fully. Anonymously. I told Clay and Denise I'd wire the money directly to the school each semester. No strings attached. Under one condition. Jordan wouldn't know. I didn't want him to feel weird or pressured. He was a good kid, bright, hardworking, and always kind to me, even when the rest of the family treated me like a placeholder. I wanted to do something good for him, something clean, and for a while, it felt worth it. Jordan sent the occasional thank you text to the mystery donor the school had on file. He'd write things like, "Whoever you are, thank you. I won't waste this." I saved those. Silly, maybe, but they mattered to me. They were honest. Real. What wasn't real was the way my family talked about it at gatherings. They told everyone Jordan had gotten a partial scholarship and that Clay had picked up the rest with some help from Denise. Every Thanksgiving, I'd sit there with a paper plate while they took turns bragging about how we pull together when it matters. My name? Never mentioned. Not once. Even when Jordan made the dean's list 3 semesters in a row, no credit. Even when he got a paid summer internship, no nod. And when he got invited to speak at a student leadership panel, they sent a group chat link where Clay said, "Proud dad moment." We raised a good one. Still, I stayed quiet. For Jordan. But silence has a way of building up. Like pressure in a sealed pipe. You don't notice until it's too late. Then came graduation. I didn't expect an invitation. But Jordan himself texted me a full month before. "Uncle Trev, I'd really love if you came to my graduation dinner. You've always been there for me. Please." I stared at that message for 10 minutes. That was probably the first direct thank you I'd ever gotten from a family member, even though he still didn't know the full truth. I said yes, booked a flight, even bought a new jacket. The dinner was held at some overpriced restaurant Clay had booked, all marble floors and waiters who looked like they hated you. They'd rented out the back section, and when I got there, my name wasn't even on the seating chart. No one greeted me. No hug from Denise. No handshake from Clay. I walked in like a stranger. Eventually, someone pointed me to a chair near the kitchen doors. Not even at the main table. I sat down while trays of roasted duck and sea bass passed me by, and the family snapped photos like it was a red carpet event. They even had those little gold name cards at the main table. Clay, Denise, Jordan, Grandpa Joe. Mine, just a plain folded napkin. Whatever. I ate quietly. Didn't even finish my plate. Then Clay stood up with a wine glass and tapped it for attention. "Let's all raise a glass," he said, smiling. "To the people who really made this happen. The ones who actually helped Jordan get here." And everyone, every single person at that table, turned to smile at Denise. Some clapped. Someone even said, "Supermom." No one looked at me. Not even Jordan. And maybe he didn't know. Maybe he was just caught up in the moment. But something cracked open in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just disbelief. Then it happened. As they brought out the cake, A man in a dark blue suit approached our section. He looked completely out of place among the relatives. Taller, sharper, maybe late 50s. He scanned the tables and stopped at mine. "Mr. Trevor Lane?" he asked. I blinked. "Yes." He extended a hand. "Dean Carrington, School of Public Policy. I just wanted to say thank you. We've never had a student sponsored like this before. Fully paid, no requests, no tax write-offs, just quiet generosity. Remarkable." I swear the whole table went still. Forks froze midair. Denise's hand was halfway to a champagne glass. I stood slowly. "Thank you, Dean. But you must be mistaken. Nobody here seems to know anything about that." Jordan's eyes went wide. "Wait. Sponsored?" Dean Carrington glanced around. "You didn't tell them?" I shook my head. Didn't seem necessary. Apparently, I never helped. Clay's smile faltered. Denise's mouth pressed into a line. Someone whispered something, probably trying to cover the awkwardness. And then, I pulled a folded letter from my jacket pocket. Thick paper. Official seal. "This came for Jordan a week ago," I said. "From the foundation I work with. It's a postgraduate fellowship. Paid, full-time, year abroad. A big deal." Jordan reached for it instinctively. I didn't let go. "But now," I said, eyes locked on Clay, "I'm not sure he deserves it anymore." And that's when the room truly fell silent. The silence after my words wasn't awkward. It was suffocating. Like the room had been drained of oxygen, and everyone was waiting to see who would breathe first. Clay's mouth twitched, struggling to catch up with what was happening. Denise looked like she was trying to blink herself out of a nightmare. My sister had always prided herself on being the center of everything, but now she looked like a prop in someone else's scene. And Jordan? He was staring at me like the entire world had shifted beneath his feet. "Wait," he said quietly. "What do you mean you're not sure I deserve it?" I looked at him, and for a brief moment, I saw the kid I used to take to soccer practice. The one who always offered me the front seat on road trips. The one who thanked the mystery donor without knowing it was me. He was still in there, I think, but buried beneath years of influence from people who never wanted to give me any credit. I sighed and set the envelope on the table in front of me. "I mean that while you've been working hard, Jordan, and I do believe you've worked hard, the people around you have built a house of lies on top of your effort. They've taken my help, spun their own version of events, and then shut me out of it completely. I've been invisible at every turn. And now? Now they get to pretend they're the heroes. And I get a chair next to the kitchen." A waiter brushed past me with a tray of dirty dishes. The clatter made Clay flinch. "I didn't know," Jordan said. "I swear to God, I didn't know." "I believe you," I said. "But maybe the people who raised you didn't think you needed to." Clay slammed his glass down. "Oh, come on, Trevor. You offered to pay. No one forced you. And what? Now you're trying to make this whole night about you. You always do this. Every time we try to celebrate as a family." "Celebrate?" I cut in, laughing once, short and bitter. "You mean when you celebrated my money like it was yours? Or when you cut me out of every thank you speech, every toast, every photo, like I was the help? You want to talk about making it about me? It's never been about me, Clay. Not once." He stood up, chest puffed. "You always had a chip on your shoulder. Just because you got a fancy job." "Not fancy," I snapped. "Just responsible. Something you might want to try." Denise cleared her throat like she was trying to keep things civil. "Trev, this is a family dinner. Can we not do this here?" "No," I said simply. "Because this is exactly where it needs to happen. Right here, in front of everyone who was happy to benefit in silence. You all want the rewards without the accountability. You want Jordan to succeed, but you want to pretend you built the staircase he climbed. You didn't. I did." I turned back to Jordan. "You want this letter? You'll have it. But not until you decide whether you're going to keep pretending I don't exist, or whether you're ready to face some truths." He looked like he was about to cry, and part of me hated that. But part of me didn't, because maybe he needed to feel this. Maybe they all did. Then, from the other end of the table, Grandpa Joe, who hadn't spoken a word all night, pushed back his chair with a slow screech and stood up. "About damn time," he muttered. Everyone turned to him, stunned. "I've been waiting 20 years for this one to grow a spine," he said, jabbing a finger in my direction. "Your uncle's been the only one in this family with any sense. But none of you ever listened. You all laughed when he brought instant mashed potatoes to Thanksgiving instead of homemade. You rolled your eyes when he didn't join the poker games. But guess what? He's the only one who paid off his house, helped your kid go to college, and didn't ask for anything in return. Denise looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Clay looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Joe," my mom said softly, "maybe this isn't the time." "No, Marlene, it's exactly the time. Because if this family doesn't learn to shut up and listen for once, you're going to lose the one good man left in it." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then Grandpa Joe sat back down, calmly picked up his fork, and said, "Now somebody pass me a damn roll." Jordan stood up slowly, his eyes still fixed on me. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Outside." I nodded once and followed him out into the cool night air. The sounds of clinking glasses and awkward murmurs faded as the door swung shut behind us. He shoved his hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. And I'm sorry if it looked like I didn't care. I thought Dad had taken out loans or something." He never said anything. "He didn't need to," I replied. "That was the whole point. They wanted to take the credit and none of the cost." Jordan looked up at me. "So what now? Do I lose the fellowship?" I held up the envelope again and looked him dead in the eye. "That depends. Not on whether you want it, but on whether you still think they're the ones who got you here." He didn't answer right away. He just looked back at the restaurant window, at his dad, still red in the face, at Denise whispering frantically, at my mom trying to smile like nothing had happened. Then he turned back to me and said, "Can you tell me everything? From the beginning?" I nodded. "Yeah, I can." And just as I was about to hand him the envelope, the restaurant door opened again behind us, and out walked someone I never expected to see again, someone who would change everything. It took me a second to register who it was. Tall, narrow face, clean-shaven, same slicked-back hair I remembered from a decade ago, only now it was streaked with gray. He wore a navy blazer with an embroidered crest on the pocket, like he'd come straight from some exclusive club. His eyes landed on me with a flicker of recognition, then shifted to Jordan. "Trevor Lane," he said with a knowing smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." Jordan looked between us, confused. "Do you two know each other?" I felt my jaw tighten, just slightly. "Yeah," I said. "Jordan, this is Edward Colburn. He runs the foundation that offered you the fellowship." Jordan's eyes widened. "Wait, this is Mr. Colburn." Edward laughed, extending a hand toward Jordan. "You must be the famous scholar. It's a pleasure, really." Jordan shook his hand, still clearly trying to process what was happening. "But what are you doing here?" "I came to meet the family," Edward said, glancing at me again. "But more importantly, I wanted to speak with Trevor. He's not just your sponsor, Jordan. He's the reason we created this position. He pitched the idea 3 years ago, funded the pilot program last year, and convinced the board to expand it. You're the first full recipient. This whole thing exists because of him." The words landed like thunder. Even I hadn't expected Edward to say it like that. Not here, not now. But the impact was immediate. Jordan blinked, his mouth parting slightly. He turned to me, slower this time, as though seeing me properly for the first time in his life. "You built the program?" he asked. "I helped," I said, keeping my voice level. "It wasn't just for you. But when the time came, and they asked if I had someone in mind for the first fellowship, I chose you." Jordan didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His shoulders slumped just enough to tell me how much weight that truth carried. Edward, for his part, looked toward the restaurant window, where several of our relatives were now clearly peeking out, faces half hidden behind blinds and glass. His smile turned sharp. "They don't know, do they?" "No," I said. "They've always preferred stories where I'm a background character." He chuckled dryly. "Well, that's about to change." "What do you mean?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "Channel 9's local education correspondent is coming by. They're doing a segment on the foundation and wanted to film a short piece. The first fellow is Minter, maybe a shot of the family. I figured I'd surprise you." "You what?" I said, blinking. "They should be here in about 10 minutes." I turned to Jordan, half expecting him to panic, but he was still stuck on the last few revelations, his brain trying to catch up. Edward leaned closer and added, "You okay with that? Or do I tell them to skip the family footage and just focus on the scholarship?" Jordan didn't answer. Instead, he looked through the window again, at his dad, now visibly pacing, and then at me. I think they need to hear it," he said. "All of it." The next few minutes felt like slow-motion chaos. Inside, the tension had exploded. Denise had stepped outside to fake a phone call, likely trying to fish for an explanation. My mom was trying to flag down a waiter to box up her dinner. Clay had started whisper yelling at someone. I think he thought the dean had tipped off a journalist. Nobody seemed to realize the story wasn't just about Jordan anymore. When the camera crew pulled up, just a small van, 2 people, a ring light, and a reporter in a beige blazer. You'd think a presidential motorcade had arrived. People started adjusting their posture, fixing their hair, sliding back into their seats as if nothing had happened. But the awkward tension remained thick in the air. Edward stepped back inside to greet the crew, while Jordan and I waited outside under the string lights. I could hear the clatter of silverware and muffled voices rising again. Some were already trying to spin the situation, probably crafting new versions of the story where they always knew I was the sponsor, but respected my privacy. I looked at Jordan and said, "You don't have to do this, you know." He shook his head. "No, I do. Not just for me, for you. For everything they refused to say out loud." I don't know what I expected him to do next. Hide, retreat, maybe ask me to take the spotlight alone. But he didn't. He squared his shoulders, took the envelope from my hand, and tucked it into his inner jacket pocket. Then he looked at the front door of the restaurant and said, "Let's go show them who actually helped me get here." We stepped inside together. The entire room turned to face us. Edward signaled to the camera crew that we were ready. The reporter smiled and said brightly, "Mr. Lane, Mr. Colburn said you're the reason this fellowship was created. We'd love to ask you a few questions. And Jordan, we're told you're the very first recipient. Mind telling us what it means to be chosen, and who helped you get here?" And that's when Jordan slowly turned toward the table, toward his father, his aunt, his grandmother. And what he said next shattered everything. Jordan didn't speak right away. He looked around the room, really looked. At Clay, who still hadn't sat down and was gripping the back of his chair so hard his knuckles were white. At Denise, who avoided his gaze, pretending to adjust her bracelet. At my mom, who gave him a weak, hesitant smile like she could still salvage the narrative with a soft expression. And then he looked at me. I gave him a slight nod. No pressure. His choice. He turned back to the reporter and said, in a calm but steady voice, "You asked who helped me get here?" He gestured to the table. It wasn't them. The silence was instant and loud. The reporter blinked, taken aback. One of the camera crew glanced at Edward, who just smiled and folded his arms, waiting. Jordan continued, his voice gaining strength. "All my life, I was told my family was pulling together for me, that we all made sacrifices, that we were some kind of team. But the truth is, the only person who ever made a real sacrifice was the one they tried to hide." He pointed toward me. "This man, my uncle, paid for my tuition. Every cent quietly, without credit, without recognition. And while everyone else gave speeches and took credit and threw parties they couldn't afford, he showed up for me. Again and again. You could feel the room shifting. Chairs creaked as people subtly turned to look at Clay and Denise. Even my mom dropped her eyes to the tablecloth. And he didn't just write checks, Jordan went on. He believed in me. He made this fellowship happen. He created opportunities one didn't even know existed. I used to wonder who the anonymous donor was. I wrote thank you notes every semester, not knowing they were going to him." He paused and reached into his pocket, pulling out the envelope. "When I got this letter, I thought it was just another stroke of luck. Another gift from the universe. I didn't know it came from someone who had been building the road ahead of me, step by step, brick by brick." He looked directly at the camera now. "So if you're asking who helped me get here, it's Trevor Lane. And I want the world to know that I didn't do this alone. But more importantly, that I didn't get here on the backs of people who clapped the loudest. I got here because of someone who never asked for applause." The reporter looked stunned. The cameraman just gave a low whistle, and Edward, bless him, clapped, once, loud and slow. Jordan turned back toward me and extended the envelope with both hands. "I want you to give it to me," he said, formally, "because I want to earn it the right way, by acknowledging you, by being honest." I hesitated for a moment, then took the envelope back and cleared my throat. "Jordan Lane," I said, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "On behalf of the Colburn Fellowship and with the full support of its founder, it's my honor to present you with this offer." He took it, and we shook hands. Cameras clicked. The reporter began a few follow-up questions, but I wasn't listening anymore. My ears were buzzing, not with nerves, but with release. Years of being brushed aside, erased, overlooked, it all lifted like dust shaken from an old coat. Clay broke first. This is ridiculous, he snapped, pushing back his chair so hard it scraped the floor. You think this makes you a hero, Trevor? Buying your way into the spotlight? He's my son. Jordan turned on him. No, Dad. You don't get to pull that card. Not after what you did. Clay stepped forward. I gave you everything. No, Jordan said sharply. You gave me expectations. And guilt. You took money from Trevor and acted like it was your own. You told me we were scraping by, that I owed you everything. But you never said who was actually footing the bill. You wouldn't have understood. I would have thanked him, Jordan snapped. I would have known who to send those emails to. I would have known who to respect. But you made sure I didn't. Clay looked like he was going to argue again, but he didn't have the words. He turned to Denise for backup. She raised her hands. Don't look at me, she said coldly. I told you this would catch up to you. I said we shouldn't lie to the kid. What? He spat. You were the one who said it'd make the story cleaner. And now you're blaming me, she said. You're unbelievable. Jordan shook his head, stepping away. I'm done with this. I'm not going to spend another minute pretending like this family is something it's not. Jordan, my mom said, finally speaking up, her voice trembling. You're being too harsh. He turned to her. No, Grandma. I'm just being honest. Uncle Trevor was honest with his money, his time, his faith in me. He gave. You all took. She closed her mouth. Her hands folded in her lap, like she was trying to disappear into the chair. The reporter quickly wrapped up, sensing the awkward energy. The crew packed up. Edward gave Jordan a pat on the shoulder and quietly said, You handled that like a man. When they left, the tension didn't vanish. It lingered. Thick. Heavy. I stood there for a moment, unsure what to do, until Jordan said, Come on, let's go get some air. We stepped outside into the cool night again. I could still hear faint murmurs through the walls. Probably Clay ranting about how this wasn't fair and he deserved better. I meant what I said, Jordan told me. About earning it. About knowing the truth. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I nodded slowly. It's not your fault. You were just surrounded by people who liked telling stories where they were the main characters. He smiled sadly. Yeah, but from now on, I think I'll write my own. We walked for a bit. I offered to give him a ride back to his apartment, and he accepted. On the drive, he told me more about his plans, how the fellowship would allow him to work abroad, how he wanted to give back, maybe start a nonprofit one day. And he asked me questions too, about my job, my life, even my regrets. No one had asked me that in years. When I dropped him off, he turned to me and said, Do you think we could keep in touch more? Like actually hang out? My throat caught for a second. I just nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. He smiled, opened the door, and stepped out. Thanks for not giving up on me. Even when they made it really easy to. I watched him disappear into his building, envelope tucked under his arm, back straighter than I'd ever seen it. And as I pulled away, I realized something. Revenge hadn't come with shouting or slamming doors or someone getting kicked out. It came with the truth being seen, with the quiet being heard, and with finally being treated like family, not because they had to, but because someone chose to.